Every single aspect of my life was affected. My health, and most importantly, the way I felt. I just did not feel like me. I felt like a shadow of me, or like I was a ghost living my life.
Well, Elina, welcome. It was a very exciting start as you rolled in today, so I'm going to get started. Look, we discussed very specifically who we want to speak to today because you are a sleep expert and who specializes really in helping people with insomnia and chronic sleep conditions to find peace, to find their sleep again and transform their lives. And so, as I said to you before, I sleep really, really well, and I would never even pretend to know what someone with insomnia is experiencing. So today we really want to speak to that woman at home who is experiencing that chronic sleeplessness, insomnia, really that one woman who's sitting at home going, I've done everything I can and I just don't know anymore. And that's who we really want to speak to today. So guys, if you're not that person, sure, please watch if you like, but really we want to speak to that woman today. Yeah. So you yourself have experienced chronic insomnia, right? So tell us sort of a little bit how that came about and how that was for you.
So it's a number of years ago now, and so that's how I got into the profession I'm in now. But I did go through a period of chronic insomnia for many years. So it came about when I went through a period of quite intense stress. It was ongoing intense stress for a period of time. And, I was in the rat race, working a really demanding job, and there were a number of things that happened that created stress for me, and I developed chronic insomnia. Now, I used to sleep really well, a bit like you. So this is not a story I ever thought that I would tell.
And also, like, you're not born an insomniac. Like, is insomnia something you develop?
It is. So it is a natural function to be able to sleep well, right? It's like we can eat, we can breathe, we can sleep.
Yes.
If we're healthy and in balance. But some people do develop sleep issues right from the beginning. So, if a mum's had trauma when the baby's in the womb and, maybe a difficult birth, the baby can have difficult sleep if the issue's never addressed its whole life. It is possible, but for most people, it's developed. And I often see it developed like when people are at university, under the pressure of exams and study and all that kind of thing. Or later in life when people go through a difficult patch. They might have a difficult divorce or be bullied at work. There's certain events that usually or quite often trigger someone's insomnia. But so you're not born with it, really.
Okay, yeah, cool. Well, that's all I wanted to know, because I always feel if you get it, then you can get rid of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because again, it's a natural function to be able to sleep well. So of course, all we need to do is bring the system back into balance, and anyone can sleep well again.
Well, let me bring you back to your story because I interrupted you. So I'm sorry. So go back. So you experienced chronic insomnia because of your lifestyle. Stuff was happening at work for you, and with some personal stuff, or was it just work predominantly you found?
So I went through a trauma, and then also following that was a period of intense stress.
Okay.
So it was, and I guess it was never really dealt with properly, and so it's very common for people who have trauma to develop sleep problems. It's also common for people with intense stress to develop sleep problems. So for me, that's what happened. But the real struggle started when I couldn't resolve the issue because, it's like after I just couldn't get my sleep back. And I went down the path of seeing, all the professionals I could see, all the experts, doctors, alternative practitioners. I did meditation, acupuncture. I did everything that I knew about to help resolve my sleep, and followed all the sleep rules, going to bed at the same time every night, having a
is that one of the things, go to bed at the same time every night? Surely not.
Well, it does help to have a routine, but the thing is, when someone's really struggling with sleep, doing all those basic sleep, following the sleep rules is not going to restore their sleep. It's really working at a superficial level, and the underlying root cause needs to be dealt with, not just that superficial level.
Yeah, so how does like you not sleeping, how did that affect your life?
Wow. It affected seriously every aspect of my life. So I was in a long-term relationship that broke up. My relationship with my family really started to suffer, and that became very strained. I could not concentrate at work. I could not. It affected my work. It affected my ability to think, to relate with others. Every single aspect of my life was affected. My health, and most importantly, the way I felt. I just did not feel like me. I felt like a shadow of me, or like I was a ghost living my life. And I think a lot of people can relate to that if they have sleep issues. They feel like a cardboard cutout of themselves.
Yeah, okay.
And so that's what it was. And I got to the point where I was just like, I cannot keep on going like this, because it's basically, to me, it wasn't worth living. I wasn't suicidal, but there was no quality of life.
That's so interesting. So do you, I just want to take a step back because I'm really interested when you said you experienced trauma and it wasn't dealt with properly. I wonder if we can just look at that a little bit, because how does one deal with trauma properly?
That's the $1 million question. I don't think we deal with it very well in our society. So a lot of the time there's talk therapy around trauma. If it's done skillfully, it can help. A lot of the time it just re-traumatizes people because they're reliving the trauma. So in my opinion, dealing with trauma effectively is actually also working with the body, because that's where we store trauma. So we can change the meaning around what happened to us and reframe it so it can become a growth experience for us, but also working with the body. When we go through trauma, the body starts to tense up, and there's a lot of things that happen in the body. So the body needs to be worked with to come out of trauma.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't come across the word trauma a lot. You know, you don't say, I mean, in conversation with people, they don't go, oh, when I've experienced trauma. How is there a difference between trauma and just a negative experience?
Yeah, good question. So I would say trauma. So in terms of the survival responses that we have as humans, we go into fight or flight. That's sort of the first way that we go to defend ourselves or to survive when we're in danger. And then the next one is going into freeze, the freeze mode. It's like where we play dead. And that's really where trauma happens. It's where a person feels powerless or helpless, and the nervous system goes into this extreme freeze mode. So that's trauma. It's really about how the nervous system responds, because the same event can affect two people differently. Someone will have trauma, someone won't. So it's how our nervous system responds.
And the reason I want to ask that, because I sort of want people to sort of look back at their life maybe and go, well, that was kind of a traumatic experience.
Yeah.
So like be able to identify that for themselves.
I'm glad you brought that up, because so many people don't resonate with the word, and whatever word we use, it's really about a time that you go through where you might call it a shock. You may just notice something that's had a big effect on you, and you may have felt a bit off after it, and like just never quite got back to how you were before.
Yeah.
That's usually what trauma is.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm going to define that, because, you know, you said you experienced trauma and that's where it started. So maybe someone can go back and go, oh, now reflecting back, that's what happened and that was the starting point for me, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if is that helpful to identify when it started? I don't know.
It can be, but it's really, it's to say that I think when people understand when it started, they start to understand that cutting out coffee or going to bed at the same time every night, those sort of sleep rules aren't necessarily what's going to fix the problem, that it's actually happening at a deeper level.
And that's sort of the root cause kind of thing you were talking about, like what was the real thing happening for you, right?
Yeah. And so it's not necessarily about, you don't have to go back and revisit the trauma. It's really about bringing the system back into balance, so getting people back into homeostasis.
Okay, I hear you, because you don't want to relive the trauma by rehashing it, right? So you went and you gave all these things a go, the regular thing that the media sort of perpetuates. What do they say in the media that doesn't really help chronic insomniacs?
Oh, well, so first of all, because typically most of the sleep tips out there are working on quite a superficial level, so it can be really frustrating for insomniacs to go, I've tried all these things and I'm still not sleeping well. So usually in the media it'll be things like cut out coffee, go to bed at the same time every night. What else? Tidy up your bedroom, get a comfortable bed. Like those things can all help, and they do help.
Yeah.
What else?
There's a dark in your room, isn't there one where you? Yeah. Is that one? I don't know. I read something like darken your room so you don't have lights.
It definitely helps. So all these things help, but they're addressing the symptoms of the problem, not the root cause. So when someone's got a serious sleep issue, really the root cause needs to be looked at.
Yeah. So you decided, well, this is not working. And at what stage, at what point was there a specific moment where you went, fuck me, this is not how I'm going to continue this? Was there a moment where you just thought, no more?
Yeah, it was a gradual thing, really.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a specific moment where I was like, no. But I think
just like that.
No. But there's an expression. What is it? If you do what you've always done, you get what you've always gotten.
Yeah.
And I had tried everything that I read about, and I was just like, because I really wanted to resolve it. The quality of life wasn't there. So I thought, I have to try something different or this situation is not going to change. So that's, I suppose, when I really, really got that, that's when I was like, right. Done.
So what did you go and do then?
And it was the beginning of a new life for me. So I quit my work only because I wanted the time to explore solutions. And I went traveling, and basically having that time off from work, I could explore lots of different avenues and then go and study anything that helped me with my sleep. And that's what I did. And I'd find a little bit of wisdom here, a little bit there, a little bit there. And then I would study those things and then eventually put together a system that involved all of those components that now I help clients with every day, and I love it.
So tell us a little bit like what you experimented with, because I'm really interested, because if what they're suggesting is not working, like what other things in the world is there?
So, and we were chatting about this earlier, like really if I had to say what sleep issues boil down to is how imbalanced someone's nervous system is, their autonomic nervous system. So are they spending a lot of time in fight or flight or freeze, or are they able to, that's the sympathetic nervous system, or are they able to go into deep relaxation, the parasympathetic nervous system? And what I hear from people time and time again is that I can't switch my brain off. I'm wired. I go to bed. I'm exhausted, but I'm alert, and so that's the nervous system being out of balance, and so that's what once that comes into balance, someone can typically sleep well again.
But just our current lifestyle, I find we live in the most convenient times ever. I go to bed and I'm not physically tired because what am I doing all day? I'm talking to people, and mentally, mental capacity wise. So I think our brain is on all the time, on. Has that got something to do with the nervous system being on all the time, that our brains are constantly overstimulated? Like we get up in the morning and we're on the phone and then whatever, but people are very attached to the phones, or even if it's not the phone, it's stimulation from all areas now. Are we a little bit too overstimulated? Is that what's keeping the nervous system active and alive?
Yeah, it can be, and definitely in our culture, it's there is so much stimulation, and there's a real value on doing and achieving and being busy all of the time. Want to get this done. People's to-do lists are so long, so there is constant stimulation, and the brain for most people is going a lot, and that definitely affects sleep because people are struggling to switch their brains off. So with all of that, one of the first steps around this is awareness. It's interesting, a lot of people come to me and they say, when I go to bed, I'm not thinking about anything, right?
Yeah.
But then when I give them the task of, okay, just watch your thoughts in bed, and they come back and they go, oh my God, I realised I was thinking about this and this and this and this. Okay, all right. Now we've got something to start with.
Start off with. Now, yeah, because, the brain goes and goes and goes. And even last night when I went to bed, because I'm so busy thinking about what's happening today, I literally had to say to myself, you just need to chill out. And then your advice, like chill the nervous system. So I'm like, well, just breathe it out. I don't know if that's the strategy, but I breathe it. I'm like, just breathe it out. And then I could feel the body just going, ugh. And that sort of helped me a little bit. So tell me, when a client comes to you then, just before that, I want to share that story where you said you had a client who was an insomniac for 10 years and he went to all these specialists, but he came to you and you did something different. What was that you told me? Tell us.
So
you didn't strip down naked and do a belly dance. But, tell us, in other words. He's like, whoa, this is a nice sleep expert.
No, not that kind of
stuff. Not that kind of stuff.
Not that kind of bedroom. Just the other day, someone came to me and he said he's been an insomniac for 20 odd years.
Wow, 20 years?
Yeah. And
my God.
He's on medication every single night. He can't sleep without it. And he's seen so many people to get help with his sleep. And we started talking about his nervous system. He said, you are the first person that has ever mentioned that word to me.
What?
And so it was a beautiful moment because finally he had some hope. He's like, right, there's something else I can do now.
Yeah.
So it was really beautiful.
And so you do body, sorry, go ahead.
Well, the nervous system governs our sleep. And if people aren't aware of that, how can they even try to start working on it? They can't.
Well, they don't understand the nervous system, right? Like what is the nervous system even do, right? What does a nervous system do?
So in the context of sleep, so the first step, so you were talking about how people think a lot, and that's so true. And so one of the things that's really missing in our society for a lot of people is a connection to the body. What's happening in their body? And by knowing what's happening in our body, we know what's happening in our nervous system. So what I find time and time again is that people don't know when they're in a state of stress or anxiety. So here's a quick test that your audience can do if they like. So we might just sit up and do it ourselves.
Sure.
So because people say, I'm not stressed, right? Because stress has become so normal. And so if you believe that you're not stressed, I just encourage you to do this. So you can place a hand on your upper chest and on your belly.
Yeah. Am I on my belly? Yes.
And just start to notice where you're breathing into. So most people, well, a lot of people, I won't say most, a lot of people will be breathing high and fast in the upper chest, or they'll be holding their breath. And that is a sign that if you're breathing high and fast, you're typically in fight or flight. If you're holding your breath, which a lot of people do as well, you're more in that freeze mode.
I do both, actually. I think I'm only breathing into my belly because I know the strategy. I'm like, I am so breathing in my belly right now. But it's interesting that you mentioned that because...
So let me just say on that though. Yes. So this is how people can start to identify am I in stress or not? Because if it's become so normal, they're like, I'm not stressed.
Yes.
And I understand that because it's become the new normal. Yes. So that's just a little way we can just gauge, hang on, is that actually true for me?
Well, let's talk to the women who are experiencing insomnia because this is who we're talking to now. How can they start just getting back into the body and becoming aware of what's happening for them?
So I guess the first step is awareness around this. It's really about taking your awareness into your body, your attention. So a lot of people have their energy up here, and it's about dropping the awareness and attention away from the mind and like just starting to distribute it through the body. So you could start by doing a body scan once an hour or something like that.
How do you do a body scan? Like,
so it's taking your attention.
Let's do a body scan.
Taking your attention down south. So just start to notice if you can do a scan, like notice what's happening in your shoulders, your chest, your lower torso, your hips, down your legs, all the way to your feet. And 3 main things to observe are what's happening with your breathing, what's happening with your muscle tension. You tense, that's what happens when we're stressed, or your posture. So often people, when we go into fight or flight, we go into the fetal position. So often people will say, oh, I'm hunched over because I'm at the computer a lot. And that may be true, but also it's connected to the stress response. So the 3 most basic things to look for are muscle tension, posture, and your breathing.
Okay.
And they're 3 giveaways as
to whether you're stressed or not, if they're stressing your body, right?
And so I don't want to say that the solution to that is changing your breathing or your posture or your muscle tension, even though that helps. It definitely helps. But it's also what's happening to create stress for us in that moment. So starting to notice when we're contracted, what is it that's actually causing the contraction in our body?
Absolutely. And then coming back to the root cause, as you say, right?
And so then you'll often find, people will often be thinking about what might go wrong in their life or focusing on things that are creating stress for them. Worst case scenario, what someone said about them, how someone's maybe judging them. So those kinds of thoughts which will create stress for someone.
And it's so interesting, and this stuff really works. And I remember coming to you for a coaching session, and you did a body scan with me, and I developed scoliosis, which is the curvature of my spine at around the age of 10. And I was discussing that with you, and I was just discussing how at that moment, it wasn't just a condition. It was at that moment, my mother started a relationship with a man who was quite domestically violent, and I was also bullied at high school a lot, and so. And because of that, you noticed how I have a lot of build-up of bone around my heart area. And you were like, well, that's you protecting, your body's protecting your heart. And I never realized that, And it's just interesting how your body does protect you.
It does.
And it does. And it's literally, and I believe in this, is when... I can only speak for myself. When I do release that feeling of trauma, then that will resolve itself. I have no doubt of that. And the same with, you also said, if you stand locked knees, it's that fight or flight. And I'm locked kneed all the time. Not anymore. Now that I'm aware of that. I'll stop standing locked kneed. And it's like little things like that. And it is really true how your body does hold trauma, and I think it's an incredible thing, right?
It is, and so it's there to protect us until we don't need those defenses anymore.
Yes, and it's interesting because you would think, and I just think, for many of us, we experience a trauma and then we think, but that was 20, 30 years ago, how, mentally I'm like, it's done. But physically it's not. And so there's still a little bit of work to be done there to release that, right?
Yeah, the body's a record of the past. It stores memories and experiences until we're able to release them.
And so you studied sound healing.
That's one of the many things.
And I love that sound healing. Tell us about the sound healing and the vibration, because I love that so much, and I know you run sound healing events and things like that. So tell us a little bit about how that works.
So one of the things that helped me restore my sleep when I was going through my journey of trying to resolve my sleep struggles was sound healing. I remember I was traveling in India and I had a singing bowl session. And I remember coming out of it just thinking, I just feel so good. I haven't felt this way in so long. And then I got curious, how was this helping me? This was this very ancient form of healing that I didn't understand. Anyway, so one of the things I work with my clients on is changing their brainwave states, because to be able to sleep well, we need to be able to slow our brainwaves down to get into delta. That's the state we're in when we sleep.
Okay.
And a lot of people that don't sleep well are in a high brainwave state a lot of the time, beta. So one of the things that singing bowls do are slow down our brain waves. So you can get into a very deep state of relaxation with sound healing and singing bowls. And so that's from a scientific perspective, that's how they work. So now I run sound healings quite regularly, and people get a lot from them.
And you do them like individual as well, don't you? Yeah, because I think you put a little bowl on me, a bubby bowl, and I just felt the vibration. It was incredible. Yeah. What else do you do to help people sleep then?
So in talking about stress, so the way that we make meaning in life and create stress in our minds definitely has an effect on sleep. So a lot of people don't understand how much our thoughts have, how much of an impact our thoughts have on our sleep. So working with changing thinking patterns is definitely a part of it. So noticing what thinking patterns create stress in the body and what don't. So thinking patterns or stress and anxiety patterns, brain waves, the nervous system, helping people to have a really healthy mindset around sleep. So something that's really common is that when people don't sleep well, they start to fear going to bed or fear not sleeping.
Oh, wow.
And then that becomes a self-perpetuating cycle. So addressing that and helping people to shift that perspective is really helpful as well. Some of the most common thinking patterns that affect sleep are going to worst case scenario, because when we're catastrophizing in our minds, and it produces a whole lot of negative chemistry in the body, and that affects our sleep. So worst case scenario, when we're mentally writing our to-do list in our head, we're producing stress hormones because the body believes that what we're thinking about is real and that it needs to go into action, even though we're lying in bed and trying to go to sleep, right?
Yeah.
So, so thinking about the future or the past, also being what we call externally referent, where we're worrying about how what other people think or feel, or how they may perceive us. These are really common patterns that people that struggle with sleep have. And to really start to notice them and identify them and start to change them.
So let's go through that again, because I think that's really important. So if you're sitting at home, so if you're thinking of the past, what happened in the past, if you're concerned about the future or worried about the future, if you're worried about what other people think of you, you're constantly like, oh, what are they thinking about me? Are they talking behind my back? Am I doing a good enough job? What was the other one? Was there anything else other than that? A to-do list. You're thinking, oh my God, I've got so much to do. Rattling all of that through. That stuff is just going to keep you awake.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We call that options. So it's when people will think about all the things they need to do, or they'll run through multiple scenarios in their mind of what may happen or did happen, or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And really, so those kinds of patterns, thinking patterns, will create stress hormones in the body. And we can't drift off to sleep when we've got a lot of stress hormones in the body. So really, especially at night time, it's important, if you're going to think, if your brain insists on thinking, I'd rather you didn't think, but if it insists on thinking, to actually switch over to pleasant thoughts.
Yeah, and how do we do that? If we're in such a habitual way of thinking, is there a way we can just flick the switch? I like chocolate. Chocolate fountains and bunnies.
Well, imagine if you're thinking about that, it's much easier to fall asleep than if you're thinking about, your to-do list and everything you've got to get done tomorrow.
Licking a chocolate bunny.
So the way that we create the pattern of sort of negative thinking, if you want to call it that, we can also create, rehabitualize ourselves and create a pattern of useful, helpful thinking. Yeah.
No, and it does, that is so true. And I mean, that self-talk or thought, or however we say it, it's just all learned. It's learned stuff. We think it's so real. We think we can't change it, but really we can, and if we just think about when, what you thought was so important when you were in your 20s, then you get to your 30s and you're like, I don't know what that was about,
Exactly.
And then you get to your 40s and you're thinking, what was I thinking, in my 30s? And so, you just think how your thought patterns and your beliefs have changed as you have matured, maybe not. But so that just is a perfect example of how these things do change.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And so there's real power in that. So what do you think is stopping people with insomnia, though, from getting help? Oh, no, but would they get help? What's the main...
No, it's an interesting question, because a lot of people only get help when they really get to their wits' end.
Yeah.
And part of that is because they've tried so many, so the people that don't get help, often they've tried so many things and nothing's worked, and they think, well, nothing will help me. I just want to say, if you're listening and that's your belief, just know that there is a solution out there, and don't give up. So, I mean, I sleep really well now, and I was someone who didn't sleep well naturally for so many years. I could not sleep without medication.
How many years do you remember? A few years? A few long years? A long few years.
I can't remember exactly how many years, but I can tell you, it was like torture. We were talking about how...
yes. Now, let me mention that. So we were talking about before the interview how serious not sleeping really is, because your body just can't restore itself.
Yes.
And I was saying how keeping people awake is actually a form of torture.
Yeah.
So that shows you how bad it really is. Now, I don't know this firsthand, thank goodness, but I know from the movies, right? And everything in the movies is real, obviously. But yeah, and so that's just the severity of the situation is just something I really want people to understand, is what you are experiencing is massive. It's not a small thing. Like, it's a big deal, right?
Exactly. So also for people listening, if they're struggling, just to know that so a lot of my clients don't feel understood by people in society, because people who haven't experienced insomnia just don't get how much of an impact it has on people. So it can be really healing just for people to have a conversation with someone who's been through it and who gets it.
How important is emotional intelligence? Like, if we start looking, how important is being able to control our emotions in helping us get to sleep?
So even hear that, controlling your emotions. So yes.
Yes, you've chose back to me like that. We're controlled. Damn it.
So it's not about controlling our emotions. It's really just about allowing them to move through us. Because when we don't, we have stored energy in the body. Emotions are energy in motion. So if we control it, if we lock them down, they're going to sit there, and that's energy in the body. And then it's like going to bed with a full battery. You've got this anger or this energy, this in your body, and like a mobile phone that's fully charged, and it's like, well, if you want to sleep, you've got to let the battery drain so that you can then plug it into the socket to allow it to fill up again. So emotions,
good flag.
So emotions do play a part, and it's very common for people who don't sleep well to have a lot of suppressed emotion.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, which is suppressed energy in the body that's just sitting there.
That's festering. And
exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
No control, Petra. No control.
And so
go.
so that is another thing that that control is something that affects sleep, because really to be able to sleep, we need to be able to surrender, because we can't make ourselves get to sleep. We surrender to sleep. We can't. It's a process that happens as we surrender.
Wow, I've never thought of sleep as surrendering. What are we surrendering to?
We're surrendering. Well, we don't actually know, do we?
We're surrendering to sleep.
And surrendering to the mini death. They call it the mini death. So being able to trust and be able to go into that space of unconsciousness at night time.
Do you feel like, is it a safety thing? Do you think?
For a lot of people, it's a safety thing, yeah. If they don't feel safe and secure, it's really difficult to surrender to sleep. So if they're planning for what might go wrong tomorrow so that they can keep themselves safe, it's really difficult to then surrender to sleep in the moment.
Surrendering to sleep. Wow, I've never thought of it that way. I do want to cover just the piece of self-love. So I wonder what self-love means to you.
So it took me a long time to get to this place, but I feel that I truly love myself unconditionally now. So to me, it's about unconditional love, loving myself for my good aspects, my bad aspects, You know, I just don't judge them anymore. It is what it is. So just loving all parts of me and being an acceptance of what is in the moment. And that doesn't mean that I don't try to grow and improve as a person. It just means that I accept myself fully and completely in this moment as a human being that's constantly growing and evolving. So it's unconditional acceptance of all that is within me in this moment. The good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah. Well, who was I talking to the other day? And someone labelled, I was Kerry, who we interviewed before, and she said, I asked her the same question. She says, I accept the good and the bad in me. And I said, well, that's interesting, because suggesting there's good and bad, and is a comparison. Yeah, it's you're comparing yourself against something, which you consider good and bad, which is not acceptance, it's comparison. So I said, isn't that interesting? I mean, you said, I know you get
well,
that.
I'm saying it because, like, I want people to be able to understand it. But yeah, me personally, I don't label things as good and bad, right? So I'm just trying to communicate it in an easy to understand way. But you're right, saying good and bad, it's judging. And from my perspective, I consciously try to minimize judgment. So it's like not labeling things, it just is what it is. And if we don't label aspects of ourselves as good or bad, it's much easier as well to be able to love ourselves completely.
And do you think having self-love is a prerequisite or is important for us to have good sleep?
Good question.
I know, I'm full of them.
So I would say it definitely helps. It's not, you don't have to have self-love to be able to sleep well, but it definitely helps for sure.
How does it help?
Well, so one of the things that will stop people from sleeping well is if they're judging themselves, and that creates stress hormones in the body. So when we fully are in acceptance of ourselves as we are, we're relaxed, aren't we? And we surrender. You know, it's just like there's nothing to battle against.
Yeah.
So we can surrender. And, well, I'll go a bit out there with this one.
Prepare yourself, like, out there now. Okay, go on.
But really, when we activate the heart intelligence, we produce more bliss hormones in the body. So when we're thinking stressful thoughts, we create stress hormones in the body. The more love we have in our lives, especially for ourselves and for others, the more bliss hormones we create from the heart.
Yeah.
And that really does actually help with sleep.
Oh, yeah, and that's scientifically proven, the heart space. So it's not really out there. Well, for some people it may be, but there is real science now focusing on the open heart and how, you know, it's all hormones and all the systems, but what it generates in the body. And we all know that. Like when we're happy and we like loving our dog and, you know, cuddling the dog.
We feel good.
We feel amazing, right? And then the opposite of that is true as well, right?
And so it's interesting, there's certain clientele that I have, and, you know, you kind of have this type of personality that they get quite excited about things, right? Yeah. And that's how they feel good.
Yeah.
But it's actually a positive form of stress. So often they'll like put off bedtime, that kind of thing. And then when clients start to switch over the way that they feel good by activating the heart, the hormones that are created from the heart by really living more in their hearts, they want to go to bed earlier and they sleep more easily. So
that's very true,
another
right?
interesting thing. So it's not just stressful, it's not just worst case scenario type thinking that affects our sleep. It can also be excitement.
Totally, which is a different type of stress, right?
It's just a positive form of stress, but it's still a form of stress.
A stress. Where can we get hold of you if that doesn't make sense? But really, for those people who want to know more, because honestly, I think it's just such a deep topic. Well, you are living proof that you've healed yourself, right? So I don't think that there's much more you need by that. I mean, I can't speak for other doctors or specialists. I don't know if they've experienced insomnia, but I think there's real value, as you say, you've experienced it, you've healed yourself, and now you're helping others heal. I think the most valuable part of that, as you said, is people feel misunderstood.
Yeah.
You know, it's people don't get. I mean, I couldn't get it. I mean, possibly I couldn't. I sleep like a log. So I think there's real value there, and so don't be afraid to reach out. You know, and just ask the questions, and know that there's hope, and not only hope. I want to go further than that. Know that there is a solution.
There is a
to
solution.
your insomnia.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's not hope. Like, why do you need hope if you're going to have a solution? I mean, hand in hand. So tell us where we can get hold of you.
So you can get a hold of me through my website, thesleepexpert.com. That's probably the best way. I have a free book on there if people are interested to read it on 7 sleep secrets, which I discovered when I had insomnia and I use with my clients now all of the time. So you can also grab that on my website.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Perfect. So my favorite question is, what's your red hot truth and how are you living it?
Ooh, okay. So can I give 2?
You can give as many as you like.
So for me, something that's really important is living in the moment. Like I've really, through this journey, really started to understand how all we have is the present moment. And it's one thing to know that, but to really embody that and live in that way is different, and it's so transformative. So that for me, that's a big thing. Another thing is to really understand that we are the masters of our own destiny, and to know that everything we think is constructed. So people often believe that they are their thoughts. And, you know, I've worked with this so much now, I realise that we are making up stuff, meaning all of the time. Things are as they are, and any thoughts we have are constructed, our constructed truth. And so to really question what we're constructing in our minds, and is it true? Is it serving us? Because it is just something we make up.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It can be really hard to get that, because people can often think that, their thoughts are real, and they're not.
No.
And once you really get that, it's like, wow.
Yeah, and you're not your thoughts, right?
It's not as hard to resolve your sleep as what people may expect, once they actually know how. So I just really encourage people to if they are struggling, to get help. Get the right
from
help
you.
From me.
Nice plug. I like the way she oozed that in. Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you, Lina.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks, Petra.
Hello, fabulous woman on fire. I trust that this interview helped you get closer to your red hot truth. So give it a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe. Thank you for supporting the Red Hot Truth, and we'll see you next time.